All right, very, very good evening to all of you. Namaste. Hope you all doing well. I see that out of so many of you, just 21 of you all have decided to tolerate me for another session, which is not a very good thing. So hopefully, as we do a little bit of an icebreaker over the next couple of minutes, some more of you will join in as well. Um, Good to see you, Binu and Sajbrana. If you could just inform your school friends as well that we're beginning the session right now, it'd be really good. Over and above that, I hope you are preparing well for your committees, for your what do you call that, your research material, and everything else associated to the conference. Am I audible to all of you? If you could let me know in the chat box, maybe a thumbs up or a reaction or a chat or a yes or a no. Am I audible? Can you hear me on the other side? Yes, no, maybe. All right, Miss Gretchen Thapa Kanchan Sarda, thank you for being here. Makes me feel that I'm not alone. Much appreciated. Good to see you, Tashi. I know some of these might not be your names, might be your YouTube names or your YouTube channel names, so that's cool. But nonetheless, today we're going to begin with something which is called the rules of procedure. Now, over the last few weeks, I've visited some of you, I've spoken with some of you either online, I've spoken to you, some of you even offline. And essentially, we have given you your committees and agendas and the different topics that you're going to be discussing in the conference, right? So, what I want you all to do now is first things first. I want you to initiate researching on your respective topics. I've shared with you study guides, I've shared with you research material, but hey, you know what? You are representing a country, and all your countries have a major role to play in the committees that you are simulating. So don't only be dependent on the study material and study guide that I've shared with you, but at the same time, I want you all to also go and use this amazing website called Google and research about your topic as well. And it's really simple. It's not rocket science. What I want you to do is whatever your agenda is, copy paste that in the Google search bar and click space and write your country's name. That's about it when it comes to your research on the topics that you have selected. The next two sessions that we're going to be conducting over today and tomorrow, I'm going to be covering something called rules of procedure. Now, you might have a lot to talk about in the committee. You might have a lot to share about in the committee, a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of suggestions. How do we transmit those suggestions, those thoughts, those ideas, those solutions, those debates into committee with the other students participating much like you? How do we formalize our discussions and go forward? This is something that we're going to be studying called the rules of procedure. All of you would have received a document called the rules of procedure. Yes, I'm going to check. Is it possible I can put it in the chat box? No. So I would like you all to open the rules of procedure document. All right, I would like you all to open the procedure document, and I'm going to be starting to explain to you how this procedure essentially works. You don't need to mug it up. Like I said, please don't misunderstand MUN as an examination. You can have a copy of this rules of procedure physically or digitally with you on the days of the conference for your reference. This session is to make you understand how this procedure will help you talk, discuss, debate, and deliberate in the committee. This is what the procedure is essentially going to be teaching you. So if all of you could open up your rules of procedure, I'm going to open up here as well too, and I'm going to start explaining to you point by point. Our first session today is essentially going to cover the first half of the rules of procedure. Our second session is going to cover the second half of the rules of procedure, and a third session is when all of you are going to ask me questions. Like you'll have a chat box out here where Rohan's like, bro, what's up? Nice to see you, bro. Nice to see you, Kanchan. Nice to see you gaming with Arav as well. So in the third session, I want you to take down notes on what you would like to ask me about the procedure in specific, and I will respond to you in the third session. It will be essentially completely doubt solving. Today, I'm going to explain to you the first half of the rules of procedure at the Sanskriti Model United Nations rules of procedure. So I hope all of you have it open. I've got it opened out here, and I'm going to start with point number 1, which is called delegate representation. All delegates will be representing one country or one portfolio and will have one vote on all voting matters as mentioned in the procedure. What this essentially means, you know how you come to school in the morning and you sit down in class and your class teacher takes your attendance, like, maybe roll number 1, roll number 2, roll number 3, or for example they might say your name, whatever it is. Every school functions differently, right? So how you have a roll call in school to mark your attendance, much like that, even in the United Nations and even in Model UN, they have a roll call as well. This roll call is basically asserting your presence as a country's leader in the committee and also communicating the fact that you are going to be exercising your voting rights. You see, in the MUN and UN is like a large democracy. Okay, you may be a small country like Bahrain with a very small population. You might be a large country like, say for example, Canada with a large, landscape and a large population. But end of the day, whether you are a small country or a large country, developed country or developing country, everybody has one equal vote. Everybody's on the same pedestal. Everybody starts on the same level. So just like how in school you come down and you sit, just like how in school you come down and you sit down in your classrooms, much like that you will come to your committee rooms here at Sanskriti. So there is going to be one board which will tell you which committee you are going to be in. You've received it already. You will enter into your respective committees. There you will find your desk along with your conference kit, and you will also find your placard with your country or portfolio's name printed upon it. You go and you sit down in your country's what do you call that seat. You can even move around. You can even move around the committee. It's not necessary that you have to be seated in that place. You can sit with your team, your block, like 4 against a topic, and you be seated out there. There will be 2 people who will come in. They are called executive board members. They're like judges, adjudicators. They are our age, pretty chilled out. They're not going to, they're there to help you, to guide you, and they're really experienced in MUN as well. So, they've kind of been delegates like all of you who are doing it probably for the first few times. And after gaining a lot of experience, they're now going to be chairpersons at this conference. What do you need to do? You come, you sit down, much like you sit down in class. Only difference is you're not coming as a student, you're coming as a delegate. You sit down where your country's portfolio and placard is there. And essentially, your 2 judges will come in, your 2 executive board members. They're very friendly, very approachable. They're from Nepal. They understand English, Hindi, and Nepali. So you can be as comfortable as you want with them. Very approachable as well. And I know them personally. I spent some time with them as well. So what you do is you be seated, and then we start with point number 1, which is delegate representation. So instead of the roll call, like roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth, they will call out the country's name. Pakistan, Australia, Denmark, Egypt, Nepal, and so on and so forth. What will you do at this stage? When your country's name is called out, you will raise your placard. Placard is where your country's name is written. You will raise your placard and say, Delegate of Nepal, present and voting. This essentially means that you are present in the committee. At the same time, you are going to be exercising your voting matters. You have a say. You have a say, you have an opinion, you have an opportunity to exercise this vote. So you will say present and voting. Simply put, point number 1, delegate representation is essentially what? Is essentially marking your presence or attendance in the conference as a country leader and exercising your voting rights as well. This is point number 1. We know I'm going to explain all the points. Don't worry. Take it easy. Sit back, relax. In case you got some popcorn or you got something else to munch on, or a juice like I've got a coffee, just hear me out. Let me talk to you today, and then we will come to questions as well. And I will complete the entire procedure. I'm not going to skip any points. Don't worry about that. The second point is called communication languages. So our committees at Sanskriti Model UN is going to be simulating committees and will be recognizing both English and Nepali as languages. My suggestion is that we're all from English speaking schools, so I would recommend we speak in English. However, like I've told you all in the orientations and our engagements, in natural flow of conversation, we do tend to intersperse our our words with our mother tongue, which is Nepali out here. So it's completely fine if you are comfortable in speaking in a blend of English and Nepali at large as well. What I'd like you to do is try to speak in English at all points of time. If you're not comfortable, please speak in Nepali. Your judges are also from Nepal itself, and they will be very, very easy to talk to, approach in the language of your comfort zone. So our conference, like I said, will recognize both of these different languages. The third point is your electronic devices. We all have our phones, we all have our pads, we all have our tablets, we all have our laptops. In fact, some of us are using them right now. Like I told you, and I've emphasized on this a number of times before, please bring your electronic equipments with you. Okay, all the research material that we've provided to you, this copy of the rules of procedure, your own research that you're going to be doing from Google as well. I don't want you to waste paper by printing like millions of pages like that. It's a waste of paper. Rather, you can have it compiled into an electronic device like your laptops, phones, or tablets, whichever one you possess, whichever one you're comfortable with. And while you're speaking, like I said, no one is stopping you from referring to those notes, referring to those research material that is there in your electronic devices. All right. Remember that during the committee sessions, you need to use your electronic devices only in matters pertaining to your agenda. So, like, don't sit and play PUBG and Free Fire. Okay, don't sit and take Instagram selfies during committee session. There is a time for that. We're going to be having a lovely photo booth for all of us as well. You can tag us on the social media when you do that as well too. I'll also take a couple of pictures with you, no problem. But when you're in committee session, my honest request is that don't use your electronic devices for things beyond matters pertaining to the agenda. You have your socials, you have your opening ceremony, you have your closing ceremony. At these times, you can have some fun, no doubt about that. But during the committee sessions, let's make this worthwhile, is what I'm trying to say. So electronic devices, please bring them. Parents, if you're listening, teachers, if you're listening, I know we contemplate a lot whether we should have our children being exposed to electronic devices. We do have multiple viewpoints on it. But for this conference, for the sake of the healthy discussions and deliberations, please permit your children to have their electronic devices at this conference should you approve. Point number 4 is something which is called decorum. Delegates are to maintain decorum during the entire duration of the conference. Any unparliamentary behavior may result in temporary suspension or permanent suspension from the conference. So decorum basically means good behavior. That's about it. I'll tell you why I use this term decorum. Because you see, as I've been emphasizing so much before, we're not kids. We're not. We're teenagers, and more importantly, we're young adults, and most importantly, we're young adults who are now going to be role playing world leaders. So I want you to carry that persona. I want you to carry that role. I want you to carry that profile in such a way that you do naturally maintain decorum. I know sometimes we get carried away. Suppose we're having a heated discussion or heated debate with somebody. We do tend to get carried away. It's a very natural, very human thing to do, especially at the tender age that we are at. But please always keep one thing at the back of your mind. Above all else is the way you carry yourself, your manners, your etiquette, the way you speak, what kind of language you use. All of these things reflect a lot on you as a person at large, as well as your performance in the conference as well. If you do something that is above and beyond, you might get, how do you say, like suspended. We don't have punishments in MUN. You get suspended for like a committee session, and if you've done like a grave disaster, then you get the permanent suspension from the conference at large. These decisions will not be made by me. These decisions will be made by the Secretary General and the management of our school, should this need arise. But I'm sure we're all really nice people from really good schools, really good backgrounds, really good families. So I don't even see the need for us to explore such a situation at the wonderful platform that we're going to be creating this week. This is point number 4, decorum. The next point, another important point, is called informal voting. This is a point. This is a point where essentially it's like everything, almost everything, barring the resolution, apart from the resolution, which is your final solution, everything else goes under something called informal voting. Remember, I told you in point number one, decorum. Told you in point number one is delegate representation. What is delegate representation? I'm present and I'm exercising my vote as a country's leader. Now, all voting matters, all voting matters are informal in nature. What does informal voting means? It means simple majority, very simple, simple majority. Say, for example, there are around 35, 40 people in your committee, okay? And there is something that, say, Saida wants to conduct, in the committee. She wants to initiate some sort of discussion. She wants to, maybe, open the floor to, a particular discussion. It's her choice what she wants to do. Now, just because Saida wants to do it, that does not mean, and that does not make it necessary that everybody else in the committee should do what Saida wants. Take, for example, me, if I want to discuss about Iran's involvement in Israel-Palestine crisis, just because I am initiating, saying, no, I want to discuss this topic, that does not make it compulsory for all 40 people to discuss it, correct? It is a international democracy, it's a democratic platform, so it goes to informal vote. I can propose it, whatever I want to do, whatever you want to do, you propose it in the committee. Then the chairperson will ask all those for this discussion. At that point of time, the placard with your country's name, raise your placard if you want to discuss it. At that junction time, the chairperson will count the votes, saying that, okay, there are maybe 25 people who want to discuss it. Then he will also ask all those people who do not want to discuss it. Those people raise your placards. Say 15 people are not wanting to discuss it. End of it, what happens? If there is a majority, then the discussion that I am proposing about Iran will pass. Alternatively, that discussion will not pass because it's not my personal choice. It is a committee, it is a democratic platform, it is a space we discuss what the committee at large wants to discuss. In fact, even the chairperson will take into consideration your interest of discussing that topic more than anything else. So, informal voting, everything in this conference, individually, we are powerless. Collectively, democratically, and diplomatically, we are super strong. Because whatever you want to do in this committee, in your discussions, you might be the smartest person in the room. But if you don't have the votes of the others and you don't take into consideration global perspective of everybody is want to discuss a particular thing, your initiations are not going to pass. So remember, when you're thinking about your talks, your discussions, your solutions, your deliberations, everything goes under informal vote. So remember, he who travels alone goes fast, but he who will take the committee with them forward, be diplomatic and take into consideration everyone's interest, will go further. How you have student council elections in school, we all cast votes like that. Everything is a voting matter, democratic platform. All matters will be under informal voting. Again, repeating myself, informal voting is simple majority. We simply raise our placard. If majority are for that discussion will pass. If they are against the discussion, then that discussion will fail. This is essentially what informal voting in a nutshell is. Moving on to the next point, formal voting. I am going to come to this at a later stage because this is only going to be used once and this is during the time of the resolution. So point number 6, we're going to pause for now. After I explain to you resolution, I will come back to this point. So as of now, I've explained to you 5 points. Delegate representation. We are representing different countries. We can cast a vote. We should exercise our voting right. Communication languages, what languages we can speak in. Electronic devices, bring it with you and use it for what? Decorum, having good behavior. Informal voting, simple majority on initiating discussions in the conference. Coming to the executive board. In point number 7, if you can all scroll down to page 2, point number 7 is your executive board. Executive board people are nice. Trust me. They are approachable. They're amiable. They're young. They are experienced MUNers. What you might be doing for the first time, they've done it about 15 times. And they are the kind of people who you will become into the future. As you get groomed in this platform, as you learn more about this platform, as you gain experience in participation at Sanskriti, then you will then be promoted into becoming an executive board member in the near future. So, what are these executive board members? How do they function? What is their role? They are basically neutral. They are completely neutral in the sense their points, their views, their personal opinions don't matter in this committee. Their duty is to facilitate discussion, to help you bring your points out, to help you engage with everybody, to guide you to MUNing effectively. This is what the role of an executive board member is. The decisions of these executive board members will be final, and all discussion matters and debate matters will come under their jurisdiction. They are also are the ones who are given the right to take inappropriate behavior, anything wrong that you do, anything heinous that you do, then they will, can probably try to suspend you as well. Moreover, I don't think this is going to happen because we're all nice people. Most importantly, what the role of executive board member, like I'm going to emphasize on once again, is to essentially facilitate discussion. The executive board member, how you are participating first time, they have participated many times before. Now they are executive board members who help new MUNers, much like all of you, initiate MUN and get into what actual MUNing intellectual culture is supposed to be. So don't be afraid or nervous or feel that, bro, if I go up to him, what is he going to think? If I go up to her, what he's going to think? They are there for you. They're there to guide you. They're there to mentor you. They're there to facilitate you. They are not going to hold your hand and take you for a walk. Okay. But they are going to be with you every step of the way, as will I, because I'm also going to be there with all of you on the days of the conference. So you can always ask for me as well. But like I said, these executive board members, they're amazing people. They're my friends and they're really nice and young. And, you all will get along great from what I have understood from my time with all of them as well. So they are like your adjudicators and facilitators. This is what your point number 7 executive board member is. Moving to point number 8, appeal. What is appeal? So, sometimes you are, how do you say, uncomfortable with something in the committee, you have some sort of concern or grievance, some sort of issue you're facing in the committee, then what you can do is you don't need to bottle it up within you. You don't need to keep it within your system and not say it out or not, share whatever's troubling you in the committee. So if there's anything bothering you, like literally anything, like right from the sun to the moon to the stars to Mars, anything that is troubling you, you need to do one very, very simple thing. You just need to raise a placard. You need to say permission to appeal to the chair. Go to the chairperson, and essentially tell your grievance, tell your concern to the chairperson. This is known as permission to appeal to the chair. As you would see in the document, I have put it in italics for all of you, correct? I have put it in italics for all of you. So all you need to do, raise your placard, permission to appeal to the chair. Chairperson will be like, yes, delegate. You go up to a delegate, you go up to the chairperson, you share whatever your concern is. If the chairperson thinks that, hey, you know what, this is something that I should look into, or this is something which is seriously bothersome, then at that juncture in time, he will take action or she will take action, because it's depending on who the chairperson is, they will decide whether it is worth taking action on it or it's not taking action on it. Accordingly, your grievance will be solved if it is required to be solved. If it's going to be something unnecessary and a waste of time, then chairperson is not going to entertain it at all. So genuine grievance you have, genuine issue you have, just raise your placard, say grievance to the chair, and just say permission to appeal to the chair, go up to the chairperson, share concerns, and we're all good. You could share your concerns with them. That is what the term appeal is. It has been designed to take care of you, to give you that extra, ability that if there is any issue, you can always go to the chairperson, no questions asked. Next point that we're going to cover is something called censure. Censure is basically, you could say, removing a delegate from a committee, or even for that matter, removing the executive board member from the committee. I'll explain to you. I don't really like this point because it's we don't everybody wants to have a good healthy conference altogether. But like I said, sometimes in life we come across a whole big basket of apples, and you might just find a rotten apple, right? That's life. That's how the world is designed. So in case there is a delegate, or there is somebody in the conference or in your committee that is being a nuisance, okay, that is being annoying, that is not allowing discussions to progress forward, that is unnecessary, creating a ruckus or doing something unparliamentary, then all of us as a committee, what did I say? Together we are powerless. Sorry, alone we are powerless. Together we are one. So, if you find such a delegate that is actually not letting committee progress in a sustainable, healthy, progressive way, is using unparliamentary language, whatever the reason may be, you all can basically, any one of you can raise your placard, and say motion to censure a delegate. Motion to censure a delegate. What does this mean? Basically, motion is I want to do this. The word motion means I want to do ABC XYZ things. This is the what the meaning of motion is. Chairpersons will continuously repeat one sentence like a parrot. This sentence is any points or motions on the floor. One type of motion is censure, where you simply raise a placard, any one person, motion to censure the delegate of so and so country, then that what do you call that motion will be on the floor. It will be put to vote. If two-thirds majority agree to this motion, then that delegate will be temporarily or permanently suspended for the conference. And at the same point of time, permission needs to be taken from our school principal to take such grave action at the same time as well. So again, this is just a more of a protective measure to protect you in the committee. I don't think, like I said, we have any issues amongst each other. We're all young, dynamic, growing young leaders. So again, I don't see the need for this point to be used at all. But as due diligence, you must know what this gives you an ability to do. And it's not only you can censure another delegate, everything is so evenly balanced that you can even censure your very own executive board member. So if you as a committee feel that your chairperson and your chairpersons are not doing an appropriate management of the committee, you all as a committee can even replace and remove your chairpersons as well. But like I said, we're all a beautiful community of students from Nepal. Don't see the need to use it, but you should know about this rule at large. Finally, we have the Secretary General. The Secretary General is essentially like the principal of your school. How you have the most highest authority, apex authority of an institution, like that, the apex authority of the actual United Nations, and even in MUN is known as the Secretary General. So this is going to be revealed to you shortly over our social media pages as well in the coming days. So this is what your Secretary General is, and they have sweeping powers. Basically, they can decide everything in the conference and take final calls on things at large. So these are just a few points that I wanted to share with you, which is the start of the rules of procedure. Going deeper into what do you call that? Going deeper into how our discussions go about, we go to something called debate rules. Point number 11, attendance. So there has to be a minimum number of people for us to have a discussion, right? So if there are no students in class, then teacher also says no. That the teacher also says no, that hey, you know what? That today we'll have a free period, correct? So even in MUN and actual UN, and even in our very own Nepalese parliament, we have a minimum number of people that we need to meet. Something which is called a quorum, which is like minimum attendance. So 1/4 of your committee strength should be present in committee at all times. Basically, if there are 40 people in your committee can only begin discussing with a minimum of 11 of those people in the committee. Else the committee cannot begin discussing, because you'll not be able to have the diverse outlooks and opinions that is required. So this again just a mere formality, much like your how do you say present and voting attendance thing. So basically it's attendance once again. Setting an agenda. So once you come into the committee, I want you to visualize this. Once you come into the committee, you sit down on your respective desks with your, what do you say, your conference kits and your placards. The chairperson will repeat, say that one rule. Remember that one parrot line that I told you, any points or motions on the floor? One type of motion was censure, which I told you earlier. Another type of motion is called set an agenda, right? I want to set the agenda. Motion means I want to, followed by what it is that you want to do. It's just a fancy word. This is what it means. So, of course, first we will come to school. First, we will sit down in a classroom. Then teacher will tell us, no, that okay, let's open chapter 4 of our geography textbook. She is setting the agenda. She is setting the syllabus for the day. She is setting what she's going to be teaching you for the day. Similarly, as a committee, once we all get seated, we all give our attendance, we also need to set our own agenda, because we are not students, we are leaders. So as leaders, we need to set our own agenda. We cannot wait for somebody else to do that. So any one of you can raise your placard, simply say motion to set the agenda, name the agenda of the committee, whatever the committee is, Israel-Palestine crisis, so on and so forth. This will be followed by what? This will be followed by informal vote. Why? Because like I've told you, what you want to do individually is your thing. But what the committee wants to do is what the most important thing is. So as a formality, it will go into an informal vote. Once the majority passes it, then the discussion is officially on the table to initiate. Now, this point is not really valid so much this year, for the simple reason is that because it's the first time many of you all are doing MUN, what we're doing is we're keeping only one agenda per committee. But as the MUN culture grows, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having multiple agendas under the same committee, and then we can choose which discussion we want to have first, second, third, and so forth. So for this year, we're keeping one committee and one agenda. You raise your placard, say motion to set the agenda, and you set the agenda on the committee, on your agenda, and just say it like raise your placard, motion to set the agenda, discussion of the Israel-Palestine crisis, put it to informal vote. That session is now activated. Your committee has officially begun. This is what setting an agenda means. So once the agenda is set, what happens? I mean, how do you go about things? You have something which is called a general speakers list. What is a general speakers list? As the name suggests, it's a general speakers list where all the speakers in the committee come and speak generally. Generally means what? Where they share their stance, they share their position. Like in the Israel-Palestine crisis, in the Russia-Ukraine crisis, in things like climate change, everybody has a different perspective on it. Everybody has a different opinion on it. So some are for the topic, some are against the topic, and then most importantly, some are also neutral towards the topic as well. Like a debate, you have for, against, and neutral. So here also in the actual United Nations and even in MUN, you have countries which are for, against, and neutral as well. For example, when it comes to the Russia and Ukraine crisis, what I know is India is a very, very, very smartly placed neutral country, because Russia and India are great friends since a long time, even though it's debatable about what Russia is doing is right or wrong. Coming back to what I'm trying to explain you, what is general speakers list? It is essentially an introductory speech. It is an introductory speech where you, as a delegate, you share your stance. You share your stance. Am I for, against, or neutral towards the topic? You have a minute and a half to do that. You don't get into deep details over here, but just share your thoughts, share your opinions, and showcase, are you for, against, or neutral? Why is this important? Because just like how you have your best friend in school, like that, even countries have countries which are best friends. Like India and Russia are best friends. Correct? Nepal and China are really good friends. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like they've helped so much in terms of the infrastructure. So you need to recognize who your friends are, who your allies are. Why is this important? It is important because the voting part, right? I mean, if there is something that you want to achieve as a goal in the committee, then at that junction time you'll need votes, no? And who's going to vote for you? Your friends are going to vote for you, no? Your enemies have different wants, different things, so they will vote for something else. So what you need to do in general speakers list, you need to showcase your stance. Am I for the topic, am I against the topic, or am I neutral towards the topic? So you will be able to understand who are your friends in this committee. You will be able to understand who are your enemies in this committee, and you will also be able to understand who are the neutral people in this committee that need convincing. This is what your general speakers list is. Simple introductory speech. Like I've emphasized before, don't sit and mug up a piece of paper and recite it like this. Speak freely in your own words. Okay, speak openly in your own words. Please recognize who is my ally, who is my friend. Your best friend in school can be your worst enemy in the committee. But that boy from TPS Biratnagar can be who you don't even know is probably your strongest ally in the committee as well. How you may be representing a country, other students are representing different countries. On the days you are going to meet, through this general speakers list, you will understand who are the people that you need to work with in your committee to get things moving. This is essentially what your general speakers list is, for which you have 90 seconds. For which you have 90 seconds. That's 1.5 minutes. Now, don't worry, we're not going to take a hammer and bang it on your head saying, no, 90 seconds over, you can't speak anymore, you can't speak anymore. Please try to keep it crisp and clear. It's not a detailed discussion, it is just an introductory speech. You will have plenty of more opportunities to speak. This is just a start of the committee, just for understanding who your allies and who your enemies are. This is what your objective is. If you don't finish your 90-second speech, you will see point number 14 something which is called yields. In case you don't finish your 90 seconds, you can yield your time. What does this yield mean? Yield means using your time productively, using your time in an efficient manner. You, as a country's leader, have the voice of 35 other countries, have the years of 35 other countries, and have the time of 35 other countries to share your thoughts and share your opinions. Everybody is listening to what you are saying. You have the time to convince, you have the time to use positively and productively. So what do you do when you have finished your introductory speech in 60 seconds? You can use that time productively. You can yield your time. What does yield? Yield means I want to give. I want to give. The first type of yield is something called yield to chair. The second type of yield is yield to comments, and the third type of yield is yield to questions. What is yield to comments? Very interesting one. Say for example, I've given a speech, okay, in the what do you call that, in the general speakers list, and I've decided to yield to comments. This tool allows the other participants in that committee, the other countries who are in the committee, if they want to give a comment, like how in Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, we have a comment section where people say nice photo bro, nice this bro, nice that bro, like that. On a more formal level, from an international relations perspective, you have yield to comments, where suppose me as a country, are condemning Iran's involvement in Russia-Ukraine crisis as the delegate of USA, I can yield my time. So basically what I'm trying to say is that yield to comments helps your allies and helps even your enemies can backfire also. Comment on what you have said. People can comment on your speech. You're not answerable to them. They're just sharing their comments on what you have said in your introductory speech, saying, I am really appreciative of the delegate of Nepal, for sharing his great, uh, healthy association with our country China, or anything. It depends, right? It varies. I mean, you will say something, it will click something else in someone else's mind, and they might want to comment on it. It's a very natural, organic, and an experiential thing that essentially takes place. Basically, what is comments? You have given a speech, you have some time remaining, you use that time productively. How do you use that time productively? You yield to comments allow other delegates in your committee representing different other countries share their thoughts, share their views, and share their opinions on what you have spoken in your committee. This is what you call yield to comments. Then you have yield to questions. This is a slightly interesting one. I mean, it's a gutsy one and an interesting one as well. What is yield to comments? Yield to comments essentially is sorry, yield to questions. Sorry, I got distracted for a moment there. Yield to questions essentially is you give the ability, where you give the ability to the delegates in your committee, where you give the ability to the other delegates in your committee representing different countries to ask you questions. Now, this is good and can backfire. So it's a risky thing. You get a lot of points too. So try to use it. Remember, if you yield to questions, those delegates can ask you questions, which basically means not only your friends can ask you questions for clarifications, but even your enemies can ask you questions at this point of time. If you yield to questions, then you are liable to answer them as well. All right. But like I said, you want to win, speak up, speak out. If somebody is going to be cross questioning you, answer the questions. There's no problem out there. There is no right or wrong in MUN. There is nothing which is like, there is no fixed route, or there is no fixed right or wrong. It's all about perspective and how you change perspectives. So yield to questions. Trust me, try it out. Let somebody ask you a couple of questions based on what you said. If they ask you an interesting question and you give back a more interesting answer, you get a lot of more plus points from your chairperson as well. So yield to questions, unlike yield to comments, is where the delegates in your committee can ask you questions based on what you have spoken in the committee in your general speakers list. And finally, you have your third type of yield, which is known as yield to the chair. Suppose you are confirmed, suppose you are confused whether you should yield to comments or yield to questions, you can always say, bro, yield to the chair. Let the chair decide. No, if you are confused, let the chair decide what is the best way for you to make use of your time. What is the chairperson's responsibility to guide, to mentor, to facilitate? So you are confused, yield to the chair. There is no problem at all. So these are your three types of yields. Again, summarizing this point for you all once again. General speakers, we come into committee, we give our attendance, say present and voting. We start with general speakers list, which is an introductory speech showcasing for, against, or neutral. This makes us realize who our friends are, who our enemies are. If we don't use the 90 seconds, we can use it more productively through the tool of something called yields. There are three type of yields. There is yield to questions, there's yield to comments, and there's yield to the chairperson. Yield to questions, other delegates can ask you questions, you need to answer them. Yield to comments, you want to know the thoughts of what your committee thinks on what you have spoken, then you can yield to comments. And if you're confused between the two of what you think would be the best way forward, you can yield to the chairperson and let your chairperson decide. Remember, I'm emphasizing again and again and again, your chairperson is your friend and your guide. So don't hesitate in essentially yielding to the chairperson, appealing to the chairperson, or anything concerned. You're not going to get minus marks. You're not going to be bothering them. They are there to guide you and facilitate you through this discussion. Moving on to the next point, point number 15, called moderated caucus. What is moderated caucus? क्या है? Say, for example, you have your geography textbook. Case. Inside your geography textbook, you have multiple chapters. You have chapter 1, you have chapter 2, you have chapter 3, you have chapter 4. Correct? The whole textbook together makes your complete final exam, complete subject as a whole for the year. Again, explaining it to you with more clarity. You have a textbook, for example, geography textbook. In that textbook, you have multiple modules, multiple chapters. Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4. Correct? Now, all the modules compiled together, all the modules together, all the chapters together make the whole geography textbook. Correct? Same way, your agenda, which is so broad, Israel-Palestine crisis, flora and fauna, protecting heritage. They are so vast. There are so many things that can be discussed into it. They need to be broken down into chapters. They need to be broken down into modules. These modules, these chapters, these subtopics or sub-agendas are going to be discussed in detail through this tool called a moderated caucus. Fancy word, what does it mean? Detailed discussion on subtopic. Detailed discussion on subtopic of your main agenda. This is essentially what moderated caucus means in a sentence. Okay. How do you initiate it? कैसे करते हैं? Remember the parrot line I told you chairperson will say? Any points or motions on the floor? Correct? He or she will say any points or motions on the floor. Simply raise your placard, motion to open a moderated caucus, fill in the blank of the subtopic you'd like to discuss. For example, Iran's involvement in Russia, Ukraine, USA's involvement in Israel, Palestine, you know. So this is essentially what a moderated caucus topic is. Where do you get these moderated caucus topics from? कहाँ से आता है? Research. Your study guides have moderated caucus topics. Google will give you moderated caucus topics. Go to ChatGPT and ask for moderated caucus topics, you will get. Not even joking with you. In a line, give me 20 moderated caucus topics for an MUN discussing agenda ABC XYZ. Go there and search it right now. That's what you need to do. Now, you tell me one thing. If you have discussed moderated caucus topic 1, then moderated caucus topic 2, moderated caucus topic 3, moderated caucus topic 4, together you will break down your agenda. Not you alone. Remember, nothing is to be done alone. We are doing it all together. We are doing it all as a team. Correct. So you can bring up one moderated caucus. Our good friends from Alok Vidyashram can bring up another topic. Our good friends from Bauda International can bring up another topic. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter who brings it up. When you say motion, it means I am proposing to bring up this topic of moderated caucus, this discussion on subtopic. Again, just because you have brought it up, that does not mean I want to discuss it. That does not mean Sushov wants to discuss it. That does not mean Prakriti wants to discuss it. It will be put to what? It will be put through the informal vote. It will be put to the informal vote. Again, what is informal vote? Simple majority. Those who want to discuss the moderated caucus I have proposed, those who want to discuss the moderated topic that I have proposed can simply raise a placard, and say, yes, okay, this is an interesting topic, it's a concerning topic, let's discuss it. Those who don't want to discuss the topic, don't vote for it in informal voting. If more than 50% passes, then this moderated caucus is activated in committee. That means you are discussing that particular subtopic of your agenda in detail. General speakers, this is what? Very general in nature, just showcasing your stance. Moderated caucus goes into the details, goes into the detail of a particular subtopic, goes into the details of a particular, how do you say, goes into the details of that sub agenda that is being discussed. Now, I'll tell you a few amazing tips. If you are the one who initiates a moderated caucus discussion, you have the opportunity to choose whether you want to speak first or you want to speak last. Again, let me tell you, moderated caucus, motion to open a moderated caucus. If you see in italics, it will be there in your ROP. Motion to open a moderated caucus to discuss Iran's involvement in the Israel-Palestine crisis with time period 10 minutes, time per speaker 1 minute, or time period 5 minutes, time per speaker 45 seconds, whatever it is at you. Max 10 minutes you can do a discussion on a particular subtopic. Nahi to we'll not finish the discussions. So max 10 minutes and max time per speaker 1 minute, you can do the math and accordingly choose. Now, if you have proposed it and the committee has informally passed it by voting saying, yes, what so and so delegate has proposed in the committee is passed, then that motion will be in order, that moderate caucus is activated as the initiator. Because you have taken initiative, because you have taken lead, you will get a chance to choose whether you want to speak first or last. Now, we being young teenagers, adolescents, we get super excited to speak. So we'd want to speak first, right? Always, here, I brought up the topic, I want to speak. But you will try to avoid doing this. This is a tip for all the delegates who are part of this training session. You will always choose to speak last. I'll tell you why. Because you will also have so much information to share, considering you brought up this moderated caucus topic, correct? Now, because you brought up this moderated caucus, you will have most information to share. You must have done more research than anybody else. Now, there are 7 other speakers before you, because 7 minutes, 1 minute per speaker, 6 other people are speaking, right? There may be certain points, there may be certain points that you were intending to say in that 1 minute given to you. Same point has been told by another one of those 6 people. So that point is already covered. So maybe you can add another point, you can reinforce with another point since वो दूसरा बंदा ने बोल दिया, the other person has said. So you have a chance to what? To emphasize on another point since somebody's already covered a similar point that you want to say. This gives you an added advantage because in 1 minute, how much can you actually speak? Let's be honest. You can communicate effectively, you can communicate crisply, and you can communicate a few points, no doubt. But when you're 6 speakers speaking in that moderated caucus, and those you have 6 points in yourself to speak, if 3, 4 points are covered by the 6 speakers, you will be able to, how do you say, reinforce your discussions because with 3 more new points as opposed to what other people have shared. So what will you do when you open a moderated caucus topic? You will try to speak last as far as possible, keeping in mind the strategy of getting more information out into committee that you've researched upon, with the hope that other person who's speaking has also completed something. This is what a moderated caucus is. Your whole committee, your whole committee goes into primarily 60 to 70% of the time in your committee goes into discussions of moderated caucus topics. This is what your moderate caucus is, one of the most important points of MUN, and it's the simplest point. Like I said, I don't understand why these MUN people use such weird words. Why can't they just write discussion on subtopic? For the life of me, I don't understand. But like I said, it's the United Nations, it's international relations, it is it's the way that it's designed. So they have these words in our lingo, Gen Z lingo. What does it mean? We are basically discussing a subtopic in detail. Again, just to summarize, general speakers list, introductory speech, sharing our thoughts and stance for, against, or neutral, yielding our time if we have time left. Moderated caucus, type of motion. I would like to, how do you say, motion is I would like to do ABCXYZ thing in the committee. I would like to initiate a discussion in this committee. Motions are put into vote. Informal vote is simple majority. That motion passes. You can choose whether you want to speak first or you want to speak last. Honest tip, honest advice for the people who have taken initiative to be a part of this session: speak last, not first. Speak third or fourth also, no problem. But always remember that there is a lot more points you can cover rather than somebody else because you have planned this entire thing. This is what moderated caucus essentially is. Your 60% of your committee will go into detailed discussion of each of these different subtopics of your moderated caucus. As such, you discuss all the moderated caucuses, you have completed your committee, and I'll explain to you how that essentially happens. With this, I am going to conclude today's session. I don't want to add too much more information overload. I'm sorry. Um, as I was saying, this is what I wanted to cover in today's session. This session is going to be saved. It's not going to be deleted. So please, in case your friends have been busy during this time, have been in tuitions, have been, hanging out, chilling, studying, whatever, please share with them this link. Ask them to just put on their headphones and sit and watch it. It's a very simple explanation of these 15 points that I've covered today. Tomorrow I will cover the next 14 points which are remaining. Basically, I think, believe there are 28 25 points which are there, and our formal voting. I will cover the second half of the procedure tomorrow. What I'd like you to do is, if you have some time, You can rewatch the video, share it with your friends. You can even, YouTube has 2x 4x speed as well, so you can essentially go through it under faster pace. Share it with the students who are participating, your friends, who have not been able to attend this session. And tomorrow same time on this channel, we will meet once again for the second session, where I will cover the second half of the ROP, the remaining 14 points. And finally, in a third session, we'll have a doubt solving. So any questions that you have, and I see some of you all have certain questions as well, I'm purposely not answering them. I want you to note it down in your notebook. The third session that we're going to be having on Wednesday, I am only going to answer questions. I'm not going to explain anything. So today we've completed 14 points. Tomorrow we're going to complete another 14 points as well. So that being said, thank you all, my dear students, for being part of this. It's always nice to connect with you. I'm really looking forward to meeting you all in person more than anything else. We've, our principal, our management, we've put in a lot of effort towards the build of this conference. It's going to be amazing, right from the inauguration ceremony. Happy to tell you that we have wonderful friends of ours joining us from all parts of Nepal, over 4 different cities. It's going to be a beautiful community gathering of the academic fraternity of our lovely country, from some of the best schools, and some of the best students of our country out here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you, of course, tomorrow and day after at a session, but more. And finally, been counting the days when we can finally meet in person on Thursday afternoon for our inauguration ceremony, where you will get a chance to meet all your fellow co-delegates and new friends that you're going to be making at our very own Sanskriti Model United Nations. That being said, thank you all. God bless you all. Namaste, and see you tomorrow.